Chapter 173. At the very moment that Keol was grinding his teeth, Yudir was strolling through the imperial gardens behind the palace, feeling somewhat uneasy. His body had fully recovered, just like before, after another day of rest. Even the slight fever that accompanied his heat period had completely subsided. Still, Yudir couldn't leave the palace. He had been instructed to wait until Kishir, who had left to attend Lenor's funeral, returned. Despite his regained health, he found it stifling to spend all his time in his room. Somehow, perceiving his discomfort, an elderly servant suggested a walk through the garden. In this season, the imperial palace garden blooms with more flowers than any other time of the year. Even for us, who spends every day here, the sight is beautiful enough to stop us in our tracks. Touring the garden will help pass the time swiftly. He appreciated the kindness, but the servant's insistence on following him in case he got lost seemed overly protective. No one, not even an imperial family member, would want a palace servant trailing behind him. After repeatedly promising not to wander too far off, he finally managed to shake him off. But that was not the only excessive thing. His breakfast that morning had been followed by a dessert tower of a 3-tiered golden platter that filled him with astonishment. Even in his past life, when he had lived as a cavalry commander with countless lands and treasures, he had never seen such an extravagant dessert. Recalling the tower he had painstakingly demolished over an hour, Yedir moved past the beautifully tended flower beds and stopped in front of an unfamiliar pond. A few fish with their fins fluttering like flower petals swarmed towards him, as if they mistook him for someone bringing food, but soon dispersed when he gave them nothing. The scenery was beautifully serene, completely disconnected from all the happenings outside. Looking down on the flowers floating lazily and peacefully on the pond, Yudir was lost in thoughts that were entirely at odds with the peaceful surroundings. By now, Kishir must be at Lenor's wedding. He couldn't help but feel regret for not being able to accompany him, merely imagining what might be happening there and who might have been brought along. Kishir would have shaken his head, admonishing him for not taking his advice to rest. But changing a lifetime of habits was a difficult task. Walking past the pond and a little further, he saw vines spiraling around a beautifully carved pillar-shaped structure. Even atop the vine, a few yellow flowers have bloomed, suggesting that the servant's claim about flowers blooming everywhere in the palace during this season was no exaggeration. In his previous life, despite frequenting the palace so often, he never knew when the flowers bloomed most abundantly or that there were sculptures and vines in these places. He reached out and briefly touched the pillar, the sensation noticeably duller. This was due to the new gloves Kishir had delivered through the servants, which were made of a thicker material than before. Yet his heart felt considerably at ease. Dressed as usual in his black uniform and black gloves, it was indeed fortunate that Kishir had delivered the gloves and uniform before leaving. Only an empire would leave such artworks coated with gold and silver just to highlight the flowers exposed to the elements in the garden, he mused. When Yudir was about to leave and move elsewhere, a stranger's voice unexpectedly rang out from behind. Turning his head, he found a man whose arrival time he could not discern, leaning against a pillar with his arms crossed. "Don't you think the same?" Yudir's gaze was drawn to the man's long silver hair, shining like a honed blade. If a commoner were to tie their hair in such a long length, they would likely come off as weak. Yet, this man appeared neither frail nor soft. A refreshing smile brushed over his sharp face, reminiscent of a weapon tempered multiple times. Only then did Yudhir slowly open his mouth to respond. I'm not sure. Really? I thought you felt the same, seeing the displeasure on your face as you touched it. The man gradually approached. I have seen that black uniform recently. You are a member of the cavalry, aren't you? Created by the Duke of Paleta. Yes. I am an envoy from the kingdom of Nelarn. The man introduced as such, but Yudhir already knew his name. The second prince of Nelarn. Eljain Afnan Nelarn. A prince now, but a man who would suppress his brothers to become a king, and within a year, one of the most famous individuals in the entire continent, having become an awakener. In his previous life, Yudhir had met him several times as an imperial envoy and as the sole awakener striving to resolve a global crisis. Amidst the tumultuous times, there were few rulers who managed and led their nation and people as well as King Ajane. It was no exaggeration to say that Emperor Kashtian, whose nerves sharpened due to the ever-weakening empire, was wary of Nelarn swallowing him up, but at least until Yudhir's death, that never happened. But the reason Yudhir remembered Ajane wasn't just because of that. For reasons unknown, Ajane seemed to like Yudhir quite a bit, and he had proposed multiple times for Yudhir to visit Nelarn. Despite Yudhir's constant refusals, the last proposal from King Ajane arrived when Yudhir was imprisoned. The empire has abandoned you. Why can't you let them go? Come to Nelarn. The king says that Commander Yudhirian is not the type to die like this. However, Yudhir ultimately rejected that proposal too. That marked the end of their correspondence. Ajane had also attended the party a few days ago where Lenore had died, so Yudhir had seen him from a distance. Yudhir was surprised to learn that he was here as an envoy from Nelarn at this time, but after that he didn't pay any attention. He certainly didn't expect to meet him here. So, you came from Nelarn? As Yudhir responded slowly, as if hearing it for the first time, Ajane nodded. Yes, I was taking a walk just now. I wanted to personally experience the famed beauty of the Imperial Garden before the festival ended and I returned. You're walking without a single servant following you. Well, the thing is, I got lost halfway. It's so vast that I ended up not knowing the way back as I kept walking. His response was so cheerful that it didn't feel serious at all. Not knowing how to respond, Yudhir kept his mouth shut and finally managed to cautiously ask a question. Shall I call a servant to guide you out? No, it's okay. Rather, would you care to chat for a moment? I'm quite interested in what your cavalry has accomplished during this festival. In Ajane's eyes was an unfamiliar color Yudhir had never seen in the empire. It was said that the Nelarn royal lineage was famous for inheriting eyes the color of lilac blossoms, a piece of information that Yudhir had just barely memorized before his previous life as an emissary resurfaced in his mind. I don't know much about it. You joke quite well. A cavalry member who can wander around the palace alone can't be ignorant. With a simple word, Ajane pierced Yudhir's defenses and then broke into a hearty laugh. You don't need to be so stiff. It's just a simple curiosity. It seemed that he was not going to let Yudhir go easily. The only way left was to finish the conversation quickly and get away. Understood. Please go ahead. Is it true that all of the over 300 members of your cavalry are awakeners? Yes. Then you must be an awakener too. What power do you possess? It's impossible to tell the power of an awakener just by looking. I can use a bit of elemental magic. Elemental magic? Even a little is quite impressive. It's not that impressive. Can you show it to me? I have never seen an awakener's power in front of my eyes. Yudhir hesitated for a moment and then shook his head. I'm sorry, but that's difficult. That's too bad. Fortunately, Ajahn didn't press any further. His demeanor was much lighter than Yudhir remembered, yet he was as straightforward as ever. He continued to ask Yudhir about various well-known rumors about the Awakener, eliciting answers and then bursting into laughter each time. Fascinating. You really don't have to pay any price when you use your power. It would be nice if I could have that kind of power. Didn't you just say that the perception of awakeners in Nelarn isn't good? In the empire where Kishir and the cavalry were based, many people also feared the awakeners, let alone abroad. Knowing this, his words were surprising, despite knowing about the future where Ajahn would truly become an awakener. It's not, but would that stop me from wanting the power? Ajahn laughed heartily as he responded. Having something is always better than not having it. The only ones who wouldn't agree are those who already have. Although it seemed like a joke, it strangely sounded serious. As Yudhir was trying to decipher the hidden meaning in his words, Ajahn suddenly spoke, as if he had remembered something. Ah, right. Have you seen that then? What are you talking about? The thing that turned you into an awakener, the red stone that fell from the sky. I heard it fell somewhere in the middle of the empire. Just then, from not too far away, the sound of someone running out of breath and shouting could be heard.